Hey everybody, Apple Nut here. How's it growing? Well, it's pretty cold out there this morning. It's minus 17 Celsius, which is about 4 Fahrenheit, and the temperature's supposed to rise up to plus 1 Celsius today, which is about 35 Fahrenheit. So, it's a big temperature swing today, and so that's why I'm just not outside doing this, because it's freezing out there. I'm just standing in the doorway with the door open and the heat cranked, and so here I go. So what I'm going to do this morning is I'm going to be creating a video here, and I'm just going to explain how I go about pruning a fruit tree right from the beginning all the way through the whole entire season. And so I might jump around a lot, be throwing a lot of information at you, because there's a lot that goes into it that a lot of people really don't think about, or they don't plan for, or things like that. So if I start going off of my main topic, it's probably relevant, and I might say things twice, like clean your tools, clean your tools, clean your tools. Like, you might hear me say that quite a bit, or I might explain what happens when you make this type of a cut at this time of year. But that's only because I'm just trying to drive some points home, and hopefully that this will help you out a little bit. So I'm getting a lot of questions right now about pruning in general. One of the famous ones is, okay, I've got this big gigantic tree in my yard and I want to bring the height down. What do I do? It's a brand new, I just moved on this property. I have this really old tree and I want to renovate the tree. I don't know what to do. Or I've got these espaliers up against the fence, and I need to know how to prune, so I'm not sure what to do. Well, in each one of those situations, one thing is the same. Doesn't matter what type of style of pruning you're doing, or how big the tree is, or how small the tree is. The physiology of that tree is the same. So the first thing to understand about pruning is understanding the physiology of the tree and its response to your pruning. So start out with last year. Let's jump back a season when this thing was all covered. So this is the apple tree in my backyard, and a little bit about this is I just moved here during the summer. I have not pruned this tree at all, and judging by the size of it, this could be about a 50-year-old crabapple tree. The neighborhood, like the town itself, was probably starting in about the 20s. So actually the house next door, I think, was built in the 30s. So this tree, I could probably go up to the top of the tree there and actually just start counting down the growth rings all the way down to a certain point, and I can kind of get a general idea of how tall that is or how old that is. But I'll do that at a later date when it's warm. But anyways, so we're going to step back a year, and there was all kinds of leaves all over this tree and everything. All that sap that was up in the tree that was produced last year, that stores the information of where all these branches and things and buds and everything was, it starts in the fall, starts heading down into the roots. Not all of it, some of it stays up here and it acts as an antifreeze, keeps the tree from freezing solid, and just some general functions that need to go on are happening. But a lot of that energy has gone down and stayed in the roots, and now it's going to start coming back up this spring, and all that sap is going to start coming back up to the places where it was last year. And then it's going to start to carry on its growth from these very tips. This is where you're going to start seeing your growth. So wherever you have a branch that has a little piece of vegetative growth, it's going to start growing from there. Or if it has a fruit bud, then it's going to start creating fruits and things like that. So it's just going to, all that energy is going to come back up, and all that information that was stored there is going to come back to the places where it was, and then it's going to carry on growing. So with that in mind, what we tend to do is come out during the, in quotations, winter pruning, which I like to call more dormant pruning is what I would rather call it, because right now the tree's in suspended animation. It's not really doing a whole lot. So what we tend to do is come out at this time of year when it's cold, the tree's not actively awake and it's not doing anything, and what we do is we start coming in and say, just say, like, I wanted to bring the height of this tree down. So I would pick a structural thinning cut somewhere, and I would just chop off the top of the tree and get rid of it. But what's going to happen, okay, so fine, I brought the height down, but now what's going to happen is, now that that's gone, all the sap that's coming up this tree to this point is going to get confused, because when it went to sleep, like a computer, when you turn your computer off, all that information's in there. Like a human, when you go to sleep, you have all your appendages. But you wake up in the morning and somebody's actually cut your arms off or something, then, you know, things are going wrong. But trees are a little more forgiving in that we can cut their limbs off and they grow them back. But what happens is, it's confused once all that sap starts coming up to this point, so it starts to force new growth. Because all of this is missing and all that sap needs to go somewhere, so that this whole growing season is going to be spent putting on new branches from where you cut that off. And at other places where you have buds at the end of the, or some of that vegetative growth down at the bottom here might start to grow a little longer as well. Or little places where you have nodes down in this area of the tree that you didn't cut, is going to start sending up lots of shoots, because all that sap that was up in this top 15 feet of tree is now coming up into the tree, and it needs to go somewhere. So with that in mind, what I've just taught you is that the dormant season, this time of year pruning, this beginning of the year pruning before the tree is awake and has a whole growing season to grow, if you make structural thinning cuts at this time of year, you're creating more new growth. You're actually telling the tree to start making more new growth in different places. So if I go out now and I start cutting back just the ends of the branches on the vegetative growth and make heading back cuts, which is another type of cut that you can make. There's thinning and heading cuts. Heading back cuts also create more branching. But once I get outside, I'll have to show that to you directly. But anyways, so this time of year is basically when if I want to alter the structure of the tree, or I want to create new growth and create new structure in the tree, or if I want to maintain some broken branches, or fix any mechanical damage from a truck driving by and ripping a branch off, or anything like that. Those are the sort of things that I want to do. I don't want to do so much heading back right now, because I have other things that I want to do to this tree. Now, I'm going to actually go through the whole entire assessment of this tree and what I want to do with it this year. Now, one of the questions I had, somebody asked me, was, okay, they want to bring the height of the tree down. What do I do next? So that's the goal for me as well, is that I want to bring this height down. I want to bring it down to a different height, so I don't have to climb so high to get the fruit. But at the same time, when I take that height off, I don't want to create a whole bunch of new growth down here, because this is going to be my new canopy. And so what I want to do is, I want to do this process over a couple of seasons, really. And basically what I want to do is, I want to come down, and so basically I want to cut this part off, this part off, this part off, and I want to kind of create a new canopy at about that height, which is going to be about 15-20 feet. Probably about 15 feet, somewhere in that region is where I want to make my new canopy. So what I want to do is, this season I'm going to come in and make all my structural cuts in this little area here. I want to make sure that when I've taken the top of this tree off, I've got nice space between all my limbs down here, and everything's nice and tidy down at this point, because once I cut this off and it starts getting more sunshine down into here, and it starts, all that sap comes up into this part of the tree after I take this part off, then it's already structurally set up the way I want it, so that it can send out its new growth. And at the same time, when I get this all cleaned up and I make my laneways in between all these limbs, when I start cutting this part down, then I can feed it down through the tree and not worry about breaking off other limbs that I want to keep and create. So I'm just going to leave it at that for a few minutes, because I want to go outside and actually just physically show you exactly what I'm talking about here. So a quick little recap. Basically, I'm not pruning anything right now until the temperature gets a lot warmer, because I want the tree to start becoming awake, so that when I make my pruning cuts, I'm not leaving an open wound where the tree cannot heal itself right away. These temperature swings that I'm seeing today, like I could go out there and cut limbs off, but the only thing I'm going to cut off is anything that's dead. If I go up and, like when I go up and I look at this tree and I see an obviously dead limb, I can go and remove that, because when I remove that limb back, say this one here is dead, and I remove it right back to its point of origin on the tree, it's not going to be a cut where you're going to see the fluid there. You're not going to see any fluid. I'm not going to be cutting into live tissue, so I don't have to worry about it freezing solid and then cracking as it starts to freeze and warm, expand and contract and split, and then that's where you're getting premature decay in your tree. It doesn't kill your tree, but it just makes your tree less structurally sound. Anyways, so I don't like to come out at this time of year and make those type of cuts until I know that it's starting to warm up a little bit. Now that being said, if I live in California or some place where apples are not traditionally grown, but you do grow them there, you don't get a complete dormant season there. I've seen trees there that had leaves on them all year round. So for me to say not to go out and prune because the tree is dormant doesn't apply there. You can go out at any time and do your pruning cuts there, because you don't really have to worry about it freezing and expanding and contracting. You just have to worry about a little more about sun scald maybe and it desiccating. So you might have to take action to keep that under control. But if I live in California, I can do my pruning whenever. If I'm living on the west coast of Canada right now, Puget Sound, the Pacific Northwest, I could probably get out and start doing my pruning right now, because it's starting to warm up to the point where the temperatures are high enough, and I don't have to worry about any of that sort of damage taking place. So you could do that there. Eastern North America, you might start being able to do that probably now, maybe. Climate change, things happen, but I would definitely wait until I knew the temperatures were going to be above zero during the day and not less than -5 overnight, you know what I mean? So this information I just gave you just have to apply it to where you live, because the physiology of the tree is still the same. When I make a cut at this time of year, I've removed a piece of the tree, the sap's going to come back up to that point, and it's going to be confused and say, uh-oh, this piece is gone, I have to start creating new stuff. That response is the same no matter where you live. That's just the physiology of the tree.